This is the Salomon Genesis. This is not a new out-of-the-box review. I've used these shoes. I've used them in muddy trails in Southeast Asia and on mixed terrain in the mountains. And I'm going to tell you 3 things I like, 3 things I don't, and give you my final verdict. The first thing I like about these shoes is the comfort. Now these have what I would call all-day comfort. All day for me is up to 20 miles on the trail. And the comfort here is balanced. It's not overly soft, but it does a good job of protecting your feet so they don't get beat up by the miles. This is not one of those shoes that you just want to rip off your feet at the end of the day. They're just comfortable and you don't notice them, and that's a big win. The second thing about this shoe I really like is the upper material. It's a proprietary blend of fabrics made by a company called Matryx out of France, and they use a bunch of high-tech stuff including Kevlar, which is how they make bullet-resistant vests. In practice, it means it's like really tough. You can scrape against rocks and brush and it just has no effect. At the same time, it's very breathable. In fact, it's probably the most tough, breathable material out there, which is why so many shoe companies are switching to this for their upper across all brands. This is one of the strongest parts of the shoe. The third thing I like about this shoe is how it performs in what I would call normal East Coast trails. I'm talking dirt, mud, wet ground, places where the lugs can really dig into soft soil. And when that happens, you're just able to have a very predictable and confidence-inspiring ride. And that's where the Genesis really kind of makes sense. In those type of trail environments, this shoe excels highly. Now let's talk about the things I don't like. The first one of those is terrain limitations. And what I mean is if you're on more West Coast trails where you have pulverized granite, mixed terrain, hardpack, a lot of just stone, that type of stuff, this Genesis shoe kind of struggles there. And the reason why is there's just not enough surface area on the bottom to grip effectively. It just slips around a little bit more than I would like. The second thing I don't like is versatility, or more specifically, the versatility this shoe is supposed to have. Now the Genesis is marketed as a very versatile shoe that can do about any kind of terrain out there. However, in my experience, it just fails a little short of that. It doesn't move far enough away from the Speedcross DNA, which has 5mm lugs, and this one has 4.5mm lugs. And what that means is it doesn't do what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to be a shoe that can handle lots of different terrains, but in practice, it still wants the same kind of terrain that the Salomon Speedcross wants. Dirt and mud and something loose it can dig into. In effect, that's my biggest gripe with this shoe is it's just not a versatile shoe as it says it is. What that means is the Genesis kind of ends up in an awkward middle ground. It's not as good as the Speedcross and what the Speedcross does well, but it's really not good at an all-around do-everything shoe. It's really just a slightly more versatile version of the Speedcross. Able to handle some dirt and mud for sure, but it's not really going to excel in anything else. The third thing I don't like about the shoe is that it's not a fast shoe. Now, that may not be a con to you, but if you want to pick these up for a race or you're really trying to push some miles, this is not the best shoe for that. It's durable, it's comfortable, it's not going to give your feet issues. However, there's not a lot of energy return here. And so when you're trying to pick up the pace, it's not going to give you back the oomph that you may want from other faster options out there. This shoe is built for control and consistency. In my experience, it's not built for going fast. Before the final verdict, let me give you one note about sizing. I wear size 12 in normal width, and I didn't have a single issue with these. No surprises. They fit true to size, and I think you can expect the same. All right, here's my final verdict. With this shoe, you really just need to think about what kind of terrain you're actually going to use it on. If I was running most of my miles on the East Coast with mud and dirt and trails that gave these lugs something to grip into, this is a wonderful shoe. It'll put up with everything you want to give it. However, if most of my miles are on the West Coast where I have dry, sandy, pulverized granite, mixed terrain, these are not really a shoe you're going to want. I think they're just not going to do that well at it. This is not a bad shoe. It's just a shoe that needs the right context. Think about what kind of terrain you're going to run in, and then you can decide if this shoe is right for you.